President Cyril Ramaphosa has hosted Lesotho Prime Minister Matekane for the inaugural session of the South Africa-Lesotho Binational Commission. This follows an agreement the two countries signed in November 2021 to elevate the structured bilateral mechanism. Issues on the agenda include economic cooperation and security. The meeting also provided President Ramaphosa with an opportunity to share information and exchange views on the latest developments in the Mountain Kingdom and efforts by regional bodies SADC to facilitate the finalisation of its reform process.
During the session, we have noted the commendable progress that our two countries have achieved on a considerable number of important areas of cooperation under the JBCC. As we move forward for a better future under the BNC, it is my hope and desire that the decisions we have reached today will go a long way in uplifting the lives of our ordinary citizens and give them hope for better life and livelihoods. I am also equally glad in the manner in which our two countries engaged progressively on a number of other areas of mutual concern, particularly on security and cross-border crimes. Importantly, I welcome the discussion intended to eventually come up with Lesotho, South Africa-specific migration model in terms of better managing migration between our two countries, in line with the special relationship and the unique geographical location of Lesotho. We were also very delighted that we were able to discuss some of the daily issues of concern around migration, study and work permits for our citizens, and do hope the remaining issues will be resolved in the coming months. We also appreciate the positive discussions around the possible extension of the entry visa for Lesotho into South Africa from 30 days visa per visit to 90 days visa per visit. This gesture will go a long way in resolving some of the challenges related to the cross-border movement of our people.
The topics that they have touched on, which affect the lives of our people, have been quite plentiful. They've spoken about water, about energy, about capacity enhancement, which is about training of our respective officials. Have spoken about the challenges that we face in relation to matters such as crime, dealing with issues such as illegal mining, stock theft, and they've also spoken about environmental issues. They've spent a great deal of time talking about trade and economic matters that affect both our economies, and they've also spoken about how our civil servants need to be providing services to our people on a wholesome basis. And the comprehensive report that was presented by our respective ministers captures the real essence and the state of our bilateral cooperation in detail. And this in itself speaks of the healthy relationship between the two countries, a relationship that continues to broaden and deepen and goes up and up, encompassing a whole number of new areas as the world continues to develop.
At the same time, President Cyril Ramaphosa also said that engagements are underway to resolve the challenge of illegal mining. He decried the social and economic cost of illegal mining for both countries. They also touched on, of course, the issues around water agreements. Let's bring in now SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena to talk about both these important issues. Thank you so much for your time. An issue of interest is around the water agreements. Looking at the fact that it's now phase 2, anything coming out on that front?
Well, I spoke to the Prime Minister of Lesotho, who told me that, you know, that the Lesotho Highlands Development Project, the agreement was signed in 1986 under the apartheid regime. And of course, you know how brutal the regime was in relation to Africans. And therefore, the agreement doesn't meet the requirements in relation to where we are as a country, but also particularly for Basotho. And therefore, he indicated that they are looking at reviewing this agreement or looking at this agreement so that the second phase, you are able to ensure that Basotho do benefit. You know that people were removed in their villages. Secondly, you have this water coming to South Africa, to Johannesburg, as you spoke to the Deputy Minister, the challenges of water in Gauteng, in particular with the population. You also get this water from Lesotho, and therefore the second phase will assist to pump more water to South Africa, and not only to Gauteng only this time around, but province like Free State, KZN and Eastern Cape will benefit. Perhaps let's take a listen at what the Prime Minister had to say about this old agreement that needs to be looked at.
There were some minor issues of for example, relocation of people, which we are working on phase 2 as well, which was a little bit of a problem in phase 1, but that has been addressed as well. And we have agreed to revisit the treaty and have a look at the treaty, and then we will work on it in the future and try and see where were the potholes, what need to be covered. We are working on that.
And that's not the only issue. There's also the very big issue around illegal mining, and I wonder, what did he say about that?
Well, you'll recall during his inauguration, after the inauguration, I spoke to him, and that was the main issue in relation to our conversation. And at that time, he indicated that the only way to address that issue is to ensure that the economy of Lesotho is better, and therefore you don't have a situation where Basotho are coming in numbers to South Africa, both legal and illegal. And therefore, I asked him in relation to building the economy, whether he is able or he can give us a better report back. He pointed out that there are still challenges, but they are working hard. And he also pointed out that during the discussions with President Ramaphosa, this issue did come up. And therefore, the other issue that they have done, they have asked the ministers from both countries to look at this issue and come up with a better way of ensuring that they address this issue. And secondly, the law enforcement agencies must do their work. You have to arrest people who are breaking the law, particularly in a foreign country. You must address the issue of people coming to South Africa illegally. The laws of the country are clear, the constitution is clear, and therefore there's no reason not to implement, and also for those who are in South Africa not to respect the laws of the country. But the problem here, Bongiwe, is the issue of the economy in the region in general, because you can blame Basotho. This is not the only nation or people who are coming in South Africa and who are involved in this illegal mining. You have people from Malawi, you have people from Zimbabwe, you have people from Mozambique, and therefore it is the problem of countries. If you don't develop your country, you don't create jobs, there are no social assistance in your country, people will go to other countries. And as we speak now, as the Deputy Minister pointed out, the population in Gauteng, everybody's coming here from the countryside in South Africa. Then you have these neighboring countries, and people will resort to illegal mining to survive, because what we must never forget as a nation, South Africa, Basotho were the first nation to go underground to make Gauteng what it is today, followed by Malawians, and then of course other nations, and particularly in South Africa. And therefore, as we address this issue, we must remember, yes, Gauteng, glitz and glamour, through the sweat of people from Lesotho working under mines, because they were prepared to go underground. So you have to address those issues, and they have expertise because they've been working underground for a long time. They've shared the expertise with the generations, and therefore you see this problem. So as you want to address that issue, remember the history of this region.
And especially when you talk about, capacity versus the population, it's not only in Gauteng. Now we're even hearing the Human Rights Commission talking about that in KwaZulu-Natal in terms of water provision, that it is becoming a challenge, and certainly something needs to be done when it comes to the region, as you say.
Yes, for example, Lesotho, they have lots and lots of water. And the Prime Minister is saying, I'm willing to assist the neighboring countries. We are one region, we are one continent. And therefore, the phase 2, you will be able to pump water into KZN as well, into Eastern Cape, into Gauteng, even in Free State, but make sure that the villages, you don't see those pipes coming to South Africa and they don't have water. And therefore, the issue of you must do justice when you share resources in the region. You cannot take the resources. We are not colonizers. We must always remember that. But if we can share as a region, as a continent, we can have a better continent.
Thank you so much, Sophie, for your time. That was SABC News International Editor, Sophie Mokoena.